Let me ask you something. What's filling your mind right now? What's taking up the space in your emotional home? Because here's the truth. Your mind, your heart, your life, they're like a container. And if that container is full of stress, fear, judgment, or anger, there's no room left for peace, growth, or clarity. You can't pour in success when the cup is already full of poison. The problem isn't just that negativity exists. The real issue is that we let it stay. We let it fester. We replay the same stories in our heads, stories of failure, rejection, betrayal. And every time we do, we reinforce the chains that keep us stuck. But you were not built to live stuck. You were designed for movement, for progress, for power. So where do we start? With awareness. If you don't recognize the pattern, you'll repeat the pattern. Start paying attention to your thoughts, not casually, but intentionally. What's the first thought you have when you wake up? Is it gratitude or is it anxiety? What do you say to yourself when no one's watching? Is it empowering or self-defeating? Once you become aware of the garbage that's filling your mind, the next step is to take out the trash. Most people are emotional hoarders, holding on to guilt from 5 years ago, shame from childhood, anger at people who aren't even in their lives anymore. That weight is real. It slows you down, burns your energy, clouds your judgment, and it's self-inflicted. But the moment you decide to let it go, to forgive, to surrender, to breathe, it's like flipping on the lights in a dark room. Now here's where the shift happens. It's not just about letting go. It's about choosing what you let in, because negativity isn't just in you, it's around you. It's in the news you consume, the people you hang out with, the conversations you entertain. If you want to empty out the negative, stop inviting it in through the front door. You've got to reframe your mind. Life isn't about what happens to you. It's about the meaning you attach to it. That failure, it wasn't the end. It was preparation. That betrayal, it wasn't punishment. It was redirection. When you reframe the story, you reclaim your power, and power needs practice. You don't just clear your mind once and expect it to stay clean. You build rituals. Wake up and move your body. Journal the nonsense out of your head. Breathe until the chaos slows down. Speak life over yourself daily. Your rituals determine your results. You don't rise to your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. And finally, look at your environment. You cannot heal in the same place that made you sick. If you're always around people who complain, guess what? You'll start to complain. If you're surrounded by dreamers, builders, people with purpose, you'll rise. Your vibe is the reflection of your tribe. Choose wisely. Emptying out the negative is not a one-time decision. It's a lifestyle. It's a commitment. Because your future, your peace, your success, your joy requires space. And every ounce of negativity you release creates that space. So empty it out. Empty the fear, empty the self-doubt, empty the noise, and fill that space with vision, courage, discipline, and love. That's how change begins. That's how transformation sticks. And that's how you build a life that's not just successful, but powerful, peaceful, and deeply fulfilled. Your mind is not just a place where thoughts happen. It's a container. And like any container, it can only hold so much. Most people don't even realize that every single day, they're filling that container bit by bit with whatever shows up. Fear, stress, gossip, resentment, doubt, regret. And they wonder why there's no room left for creativity, joy, or peace. They wonder why no matter how much they try to grow or change or achieve, something always feels off. That off is clutter. That off is the consequence of letting your mind be ruled by what's loud instead of what's true. If your mind is the container, then the quality of your life is determined by what you pour into it and what you allow to remain inside. You have to understand something. The human brain is wired for survival, not happiness. So left unchecked, it naturally leans toward the negative. It scans for what's wrong, what could go wrong, what might go wrong. That's its job. But your job is different. Your job is to lead. You can't let that ancient survival mechanism be the director of your destiny. If you don't take control of what fills your mind, the world will do it for you. And guess what the world is full of? Negativity, distraction, scarcity, noise. If you're not filtering what comes in, you're surrendering the driver's seat of your life. Imagine walking into your kitchen every morning and finding the sink filled with dirty dishes. Would you just keep piling on more without ever cleaning it out? That's exactly what people do with their minds. They carry yesterday's fear, last week's frustration, last year's heartbreak, and they never empty the sink. And then they try to function, go to work, lead a family, build a dream with that mental mess in the background. No wonder they feel overwhelmed. No wonder motivation dies. The truth is, you don't need more motivation. You need more clarity. And clarity comes from space. Space comes from removing what doesn't serve you. Start being aware of what you're allowing to sit in your mind. What conversations are you replaying in your head? What old wounds are you still poking at? What stories are you telling yourself about who you are, what you're capable of, what you're allowed to have? Because here's the truth. Those stories aren't facts. They're just repeated thoughts. And every time you repeat them, you reinforce them. But just like a container, you can empty it. You can release what no longer fits the version of you you're becoming. The most powerful people on the planet aren't those who never face negativity. They're the ones who know how to process it, clear it out, and make room for something better. They protect their mental container like it's sacred, because it is. If your mind is cluttered, you'll sabotage your own progress without even realizing it. You'll procrastinate, you'll self-doubt, you'll attract what you're trying to avoid. But when your mind is clear, when you've emptied out the garbage, you show up differently. You listen deeper, you move with purpose, you feel lighter, freer, and more in tune with your mission. This is not about pretending the negative doesn't exist. This is not some fake positivity nonsense. This is about ownership. Owning what goes in, owning what stays, and most importantly, owning what must go. You don't have to hold on to that resentment anymore. You don't have to carry the opinions of people who don't live your life. You don't have to relive that failure over and over like it's part of your identity. You are allowed to empty it out. You are allowed to release what's weighing you down. But you've got to be intentional. You've got to treat your mind like a sacred space, not a garbage dump for the world's chaos. You've got to become the gatekeeper, the curator, the protector of what you allow to enter and stay. Because when the container is clean, everything flows easier. Ideas become clearer. Decisions feel lighter. Energy returns. Hope becomes real again. And that right there is the shift most people are craving without knowing it. Not more hustle, not more pressure, just less noise, less junk, less unnecessary weight. So the question is, what are you ready to let go of today? What do you need to empty out so you can finally make room for the life that's waiting for you? You cannot change what you don't first become aware of. That's the foundation of all transformation. Most people are stuck not because they're incapable of change, but because they're blind to what's actually holding them back. They're walking through life carrying invisible weights, buried emotions, toxic beliefs, subtle fears. And because those weights have been there for so long, they feel normal. They don't realize that the anger they feel isn't just about what's happening now. It's a residue of something much older. They don't realize the self-doubt didn't start yesterday. It's been programmed for years, maybe decades. And until you stop and look at the pattern consciously, you will continue to be driven by forces you don't even see. Awareness is not just noticing a thought. It's recognizing its origin. It's being brutally honest with yourself about how you've been wired. Why do you keep reacting a certain way in conversations? Why do you shut down when things get hard? Why do you chase validation or avoid responsibility? These aren't random behaviors. They're patterns. Patterns that were taught, learned, repeated, and eventually accepted as truth. But that's the good news. If they were learned, they can be unlearned. And the gateway to unlearning is awareness. Think about it like this. If your mind was a computer, awareness is the moment you open the system and realize certain programs have been running in the background without your permission. Old programs like, I'm not enough. People always leave. Success isn't for people like me. And they've been eating up your energy influencing your decisions, shaping your emotions, and you never even saw them. Why? Because awareness takes effort. It takes stillness. And let's be real. Most people avoid stillness because it's easier to stay distracted than to face what's really going on inside. But you cannot fix what you won't face. You cannot heal what you're unwilling to acknowledge. The pain you suppress doesn't disappear. It leaks. It leaks into your relationships, your habits, your health, your decision. And the moment you shine the light of awareness on that pain, it begins to lose its grip. That's why becoming aware of your inner world is not some luxury or soft practice. It's survival. It's the beginning of real strength. But here's the catch. True awareness requires courage. Because when you start becoming aware, you might not like what you find. You'll see the part of yourself that's been sabotaging your goals. You'll meet the version of you that plays small, that avoids conflict, that numbs emotion. And your ego will want to fight it. It will want to deny, defend, deflect. But if you're serious about breaking free from negativity, you have to stay in the discomfort long enough to understand it, because awareness without judgment leads to breakthrough. But awareness met with shame leads to self-sabotage. So instead of beating yourself up for what you discover, learn to observe it with curiosity. Why am I triggered by that? Why do I keep attracting the same kind of people? Why do I always expect the worst to happen? These questions aren't weaknesses. They're power tools. They're the beginning of dismantling decades of conditioning. And every time you ask them honestly, you reclaim a piece of your freedom. Most people wait for a breakdown to begin this work. They wait for the collapse, the divorce, the burnout, the rock bottom. But you don't have to wait for pain to become your teacher. You can choose awareness now. You can slow down, tune in, and start noticing the patterns that aren't aligned with the life you want to live. And once you become aware, you can begin to release, not through force, not through shame, but through conscious decision. You are not your thoughts. You are not your emotions. You are not your patterns. You are the observer behind them. And when you realize that, you gain leverage, you gain power, because you stop reacting and start responding. You stop repeating and start choosing. So the invitation is this: slow down, look within, observe the chatter in your mind, the stories you tell, the emotions you carry. Don't try to fix them all at once. Just become aware. Awareness is the flashlight in the dark. It doesn't eliminate every shadow instantly, but it gives you the power to stop walking blind. And that right there is where transformation begins. Not with a new strategy, not with another motivational quote, but with one bold decision to pay attention to yourself, to listen without running, and to become so aware that you can no longer go back to sleep. That's how you begin to empty out the negative, not by force, but by finally seeing it. And once you see it, you are no longer its prisoner. You are its master. People don't just hold on to pain. They hoard it, not because they want to suffer, but because at some point, that pain gave them identity, safety, or meaning. And without even realizing it, they keep storing it deep inside, year after year, moment after moment. It's not just one heartbreak. It's all of them. Not just one betrayal, but every little moment, someone made them feel small, overlooked, unwanted. Emotional hoarding isn't visible on the surface, but you can feel it in how people move through life. You see it in how quickly someone snaps, how often they withdraw, how deeply they avoid intimacy, risk, or love. It's the invisible weight that makes everything feel heavier than it needs to be. Most people are walking around carrying stories from 10 years ago like they just happened yesterday. That insult from a parent that turned into a belief, that failure at a job that became an identity, that betrayal that turned into a wall built so high no one could get in. But emotional pain is not meant to be stored long term. Just like physical waste, it's meant to be processed, released, and cleared. When you hold it in, it becomes toxic, it clouds your judgment, drains your energy, and affects your body. Stress, anxiety, burnout, these aren't always the result of what's happening now. They're often symptoms of unresolved emotional clutter from years past that was never dealt with, just pushed down and hidden under busyness, distraction, or denial. And here's the trap. The longer you hold on to emotional weight, the more it begins to define you. You start building your identity around the pain. I'm the one who always gets hurt. I can't trust anyone. People always let me down. That pain starts to shape your beliefs, and those beliefs shape your decisions. Before you know it, you're not living your life. You're reacting to your past. You're not building your future. You're protecting yourself from repeating history. And in that protection, you lose connection. You lose spontaneity. You lose joy. You think you're keeping yourself safe, but you're actually locking yourself in a prison made of your own memories. And so what does it look like to be resilient? And, I learned the value of resilience from my mom in that it takes courage to let go. Because when you've carried pain for so long, it feels familiar. And as strange as it sounds, familiar pain can feel safer than unknown peace. That's why people cling to it. They think if they let go, they'll lose a part of themselves. But what they don't realize is that what they're really losing is the version of themselves that's been stuck. And that version can't take them where they want to go. Releasing emotional clutter isn't about pretending it didn't happen. It's not about minimizing the pain. It's about making the powerful choice to stop letting the past dictate your future. To say, yes, it happened. Yes, it hurt. But I am no longer giving it the keys to my life. The way out isn't easy, but it is simple. It starts with acknowledgement. Bring that pain into the light. Say its name. Feel it without judgment. Don't numb it. Don't escape it. Just face it. Because when you face it, you shrink it. What you resist grows. What you feel fully loses its control over you. Then decide what you're going to do with it. Will you carry it another year, or will you learn from it, release it, and create space for something better? See, when you finally let go of emotional baggage, something shifts. You stop reacting from wounds and you start responding from wisdom. You move lighter. You laugh deeper. You listen more. You connect without fear. You love without needing to be perfect. You become grounded, not guarded. And people around you can feel it. It's like a weight has been lifted, not just from your shoulders, but from your entire energy. And that space you just opened up, that's where growth lives. That's where clarity rushes in. That's where your future gets built. You can't build a strong house on top of clutter. You've got to clean out the basement first. And for most people, the basement is emotional. The clutter is unseen, but the consequences, they show up everywhere. In your relationships, in your confidence, in your ability to dream again. So clean it out. Not all at once, but one piece at a time. Forgive the ones who never apologize, not for them, but for you. Let go of the guilt you've been punishing yourself with. Release the shame that was never yours to carry. Every time you do, you free a piece of your soul that's been locked away. This is the deep work, the real work, the work that shifts your energy so profoundly the world around you begins to respond differently. But it only happens when you stop hoarding and start healing. Empty it out. Make space. And remember, the stronger version of you is not buried under perfection. It's waiting on the other side of release. Most people think their suffering comes from what happened to them. The truth is, it comes from the meaning they gave to what happened. Two people can go through the same experience and come out with completely different outcomes. One becomes bitter, the other becomes better. Why? Because meaning creates emotion, and emotion drives action. You're not living your life based on facts. You're living it based on the story you tell yourself about those facts. And when that story is negative, disempowering, or based in fear, you trap yourself in a prison of your own perspective. You have to understand that your brain is constantly assigning meaning to everything. It's how we survive. But when the meanings you create are based on pain, ego, or outdated beliefs, they start working against you. Someone doesn't text you back. You tell yourself they don't respect you. You carry yourself in such a way, you develop the value of your own perspective. You have to understand that your brain is constantly assigning meaning to everything in your life. You tend to get desperate and aggressive. You put upshock. You tell yourself you fail at something, you decide you're not good enough. You go through a heartbreak and you convince yourself that you'll never be loved again. None of that is the truth. It's just the meaning you gave it. And if you want to change your life, you have to be willing to change the meaning. But here's the challenge. Most people don't even realize they're telling themselves a story. They think they're just being realistic. They don't recognize that the lens they're looking through is dirty. They've had years of disappointment, rejection, criticism, and now every experience gets filtered through that pain. They're not reacting to the present. They're reacting to a past version of the present. That's what keeps people stuck. That's what keeps them from healing. That's what keeps them from growing. The story becomes a loop. And until you stop and question it, you'll keep living inside that loop thinking it's just the way life is. But the beautiful thing is this. You can rewrite the story. You can reframe the entire narrative. That failure, maybe it was the best lesson you ever got. That rejection, maybe it protected you from a road you weren't meant to walk. That betrayal, maybe it taught you what real boundaries are, what self-respect feels like. Every experience has two sides, the pain and the power. You get to choose which one becomes the dominant meaning in your life. That's not denial. That's ownership. That's maturity. That's how you rise. Reframing isn't about pretending everything is perfect. It's about taking control of your internal language. It's about catching yourself in the middle of a limiting thought and flipping the script. Instead of saying, why does this always happen to me? You say, what is this trying to teach me? Instead of saying, I can't do this, you ask, what part of me needs to grow to handle this? That shift in language changes your state. And when your state changes, your decisions change. Suddenly, you're not a victim of life, you're a student of it. And students grow, students adapt, students evolve. And don't think for a second that this is just a mental trick. This is neuroscience. Your brain is plastic. It rewires based on repetition. If you constantly tell yourself you're not enough, your mind will build a home around that belief. But if you keep choosing a new frame, a new narrative, your brain starts to follow. Over time, what once triggered you now empowers you. What once broke you now builds you. That's the real shift. That's the transformation no one can see on the outside, but you feel it in your soul. And let's be honest, reframing takes work. It's not automatic. When you've been telling yourself the same story for 10, 20, 30 years, it feels like the truth. But you weren't born thinking you were broken. You weren't born thinking you weren't enough. That was learned. But you have to catch it. You have to interrupt it. You have to replace it. Not once, but daily, repeatedly, until the new story is stronger than the old one, until the new meaning feels more real than the pain ever did. So ask yourself, what story are you living in? What experience in your past still has control over your present because of the meaning you gave it? And what would change in your life if you gave it a new meaning? One that served you instead of sabotaging you. That's the real work. Not just chasing new results, but going back and reclaiming your narrative, owning it, rewriting it, choosing to see it through a lens that makes you stronger, not smaller. That's how you take your power back. Not by changing what happened, but by changing what it means to you now. Transformation doesn't come from a one-time decision. It comes from the systems you build to support who you're becoming. And that's where rituals come in. If you truly want to empty out the negative and fill your life with purpose, energy, clarity, you must create rituals that realign you every single day. Not once in a while, not just when you feel like it, every single day. Because life doesn't stop throwing chaos at you. And life doesn't pause and wait for you to feel motivated. If anything, it ramps up. It throws curveballs, distractions, stress, negativity, all of it. That's why rituals aren't just habits. They're your armor. They're your reset button. They are the intentional practices that bring you back to your center when the world tries to pull you off course. The people who feel overwhelmed, anxious, stuck, they're not broken. They're just misaligned. Their external world is running their internal world. They wake up and immediately check their phone, get bombarded by messages, scroll through drama, absorb everyone else's emotions before they've even connected to their own. And then they wonder why they feel off all day. That's not a mystery. That's a result. It's the result of not owning the first few moments of your day. And if you lose the beginning, you usually lose the rest. But when you create a ritual, a consistent, intentional space for silence, for movement, for gratitude, for focus, everything shifts. Not because the world changes, but because your state changes. Your state is everything. How you feel emotionally and physically at any given moment dictates how you think, what you believe is possible, how you respond to challenges, how you treat other people. And your rituals are what train your nervous system to stay in a peak state more often. That's why motion is so important. Physical movement, whether it's a walk, a stretch, a full workout, immediately changes your physiology. It releases stuck energy. It opens you up. You can't stay in a negative emotional state while moving your body with power and purpose. It's chemically impossible. That's why high performers move every day. It's not about fitness. It's about focus. It's about shifting their internal world before the outside world even gets a chance to speak. But it's not just movement. It's also about reflection. Your mind needs a place to unload what it's holding. That's why journaling is such a powerful ritual. You sit down and you let it all out. The noise, the fear, the thoughts you can't explain, the dreams that feel too big to say out loud. You give your mind a safe space to breathe. And in that process, you find clarity. Clarity doesn't come from thinking harder. It comes from writing honestly, from seeing your thoughts in front of you and realizing which ones are true, which ones are toxic, and which ones are just old echoes from the past. When you write, you release. When you release, you create space. And that space becomes your power. And then there's gratitude. It's not fluff. It's not cliche. It's neuroscience. When you focus on what's working, what's beautiful, what you already have, you train your brain to see opportunity instead of threat. You rewire yourself to focus on the gain, not just the gap. And that energy shows up in how you lead, how you speak, how you love, how you show up in the world. Gratitude is a ritual that turns ordinary moments into miracles. It doesn't make your problems disappear, but it changes how you face them. And that's everything. Breath. Let's talk about breath. People underestimate it, but your breath is the fastest way to reset your nervous system. When life hits, when emotions spike, when your mind spirals, you don't always have an hour to figure it out, but you always have your breath, slowing it down, deepening it, recentering your focus. You can change your entire state in less than 60 seconds. And when you stack that with movement, with gratitude, with journaling, with focus, you've built a morning that isn't just productive, it's powerful. You're not reacting, you're choosing, you're leading. And that sets the tone for everything that follows. You don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. That's the truth most people miss. You could have the best intentions in the world, but without rituals to support them, you'll get pulled back into old patterns. That's why every time you return to your ritual, even when it's hard, even when you don't feel like it, you're telling your mind, I'm in control now. That's how you reclaim your life. Not in one big moment, but in 1,000 small ones. In the quiet commitment to show up for yourself day after day, moment after moment. So if you truly want to empty out the negative, don't wait for the storm to pass. Build your rituals in the middle of the storm. Build them now. Because once you do, you stop hoping for a better life and start creating it. You don't just become who you are based on what you think or feel. You become who you are based on what surrounds you. what you're exposed to, what you allow into your space day after day. Your environment isn't just background noise. It's shaping your beliefs, your standards, your emotions, and ultimately your identity. Most people don't realize they're not just a product of their choices. They're a product of their surrounding. And if your surroundings are full of negativity, low energy, blame, excuses, gossip, fear, that seeps into you. It becomes normal. It becomes familiar. And familiarity is powerful. People would rather stay in a toxic environment they're used to than step into a healthy one that's unfamiliar. But just because something feels familiar doesn't mean it's good for you. And just because you've adapted to it doesn't mean it isn't draining you. The people you spend the most time with matter. Their energy, their language, their mindset, it all gets into you. If you're constantly around people who complain, who always point fingers, who talk about what's wrong with the world instead of what's possible, you start thinking like them without even realizing it. You pick up their limitations. You echo their doubts. You laugh at their sarcasm. And then you wonder why you feel stuck, why you can't move forward, why your vision feels blurry. It's not just your mindset, it's your environment echoing back a version of you that no longer aligns with your potential. You cannot rise to greatness while surrounded by mediocrity disguised as comfort. You can't breathe possibility in a room full of people who have settled. And it's not just people, it's what you consume. The media you watch, the content you scroll through, the words you listen to, the music in your ears, the conversations you absorb, it all programs your mind. Every bit of it, whether you're conscious of it or not. Every input becomes part of your mental diet. And just like physical health, if you keep consuming junk, you feel heavy, foggy, sluggish. You can't create a powerful life with a polluted mind. If you're feeding your mind with negativity, fear, chaos, division, and distraction, you're training it to survive, not to lead. You're wiring it for reaction instead of creation. You need to start treating your environment like it's sacred, because it is. Your space should reflect your standards. Your surroundings should fuel your mission. The energy in your home, your room, your workspace, it should breathe clarity into you, not confusion. Clean up the physical clutter and you'll feel a shift mentally. Organize your space and you organize your thoughts. Create a place where your focus is protected, your peace is respected, and your energy is elevated. And if you can't change the whole environment right now, start small. One drawer, one room, one conversation you stop entertaining, one person you stop giving your time to just because you feel guilty. It's not about being perfect, it's about being intentional. If you want to grow, if you want to empty out the negative and step into your real power, then you've got to curate your circle. Find people who challenge you, not drain you. People who speak truth, not fear. People who hold you to a higher standard, not keep you comfortable in your excuses. The right people will stretch you. They'll speak vision over your life when you forget your own strength. They'll remind you who you are when your inner critic gets loud. That's not a luxury. It's a requirement. You cannot do big things surrounded by small energy. Not because those people are bad, but because you're building something they're not meant to understand. Protect your energy like your life depends on it, because it does. Protect your peace like it's oxygen, because it is. Your future self is watching who you're allowing in right now. Choose wisely, because everything you allow into your space is either contributing to your future or contaminating it. There is no neutral. You're either being built or broken by what surrounds you. And if you're serious about growth, if you're serious about healing, about vision, about peace, then your environment has to become a reflection of that. Let go of what no longer aligns, cut the noise, eliminate the unnecessary, and surround yourself with whatever keeps you grounded, focused, and alive. That's how you maintain the space to grow. That's how you protect the progress you've made. That's how you make sure the negative doesn't sneak back in through the back door of your life. Through a conversation, a screen, a routine. Because if you're not careful, you'll start fighting the same battles you already won simply because you stayed in the same atmosphere that made you sick. Change your environment and you'll change your state. Change your state and you'll change your decisions. Change your decisions and you change your life.